Sit still, kid. This isn't a place for children who cause trouble. The man in seat 7B shouted so loudly that the entire cabin turned to look at the tiny girl in seat 7A. She lowered her head, clutching her old backpack. Everyone thought she was just a child who had lost her mother. Suddenly the aircraft shook violently. It tilted nearly 40 degrees, as if being torn from the airstream. Red warning lights wailed. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling. The captain was unconscious. Outside, over military radios, 2 F-20 fighter jets growled. Identify your pilot immediately. Chaos filled the cabin, but the girl stood up, reached for the microphone, and spoke 3 clear words. Raptor 9-3. Ellie Ward. She was 17 years old, small, looking like a middle school student, and yet the only person on board who could save the aircraft now. Music becomes more dramatic. Ellie loved window seats. Not for comfort, but out of habit. Every vantage point was training for her, learned through years of simulated flight operations. Passengers whispered, letting a child fly alone, how sad. No one knew that Ellie was part of a top-secret program for young elite pilots. Her notebook, unremarkable to outsiders, was a warrior's manual. Aerodynamics, combat maneuvers, emergency protocols, not a hobby, but survival training. Her mind worked automatically, instinctively, like breathing. And now the aircraft needed exactly that. Tension rises, sirens sound. The turbulence intensified. Gusts battered the plane, objects fell. The main pilot was unconscious, the co-pilot panicking. We've lost control, he shouted. Ellie moved calmly through the shaking cabin. A flight attendant blocked her path. You can't go up there. If we don't hold the angle, the wing will fail, Ellie said simply. The F-20s detected interference and closed in menacingly. Flight 7-3, identify your pilot or we will engage. Ellie knocked on the cockpit door in a precise rhythm, a code understood only by fighter pilots. The co-pilot opened it hesitantly, saw the child, and shouted, no. Get out. Raptor 9-3, Ellie said, her voice steady as steel. Instantly, the F-22 pilots fell silent. Music turns heroic. Ma'am, your orders, came the voice of the F-22. Ellie took control. Her hands moved over the instruments, calm, precise. The aircraft fought the gusts, the failed autopilot, the G-force shock that had knocked out the captain, and yet she stabilized it. How are you doing this? The co-pilot asked in disbelief. Practice, Ellie replied curtly. The cabin went silent. Even the man in seat 7B, who had shouted at her earlier, sat pale and speechless. Soft transition, emotional music. Behind the scenes, in military command centers, panic erupted. Raptor 93 was officially listed as dead. Yet here, at 30,000 feet, Ellie proved she was alive, and that excellence has no age. The plane landed safely at last. Emergency teams stood ready, but they weren't needed. Ellie handed control back to the co-pilot. The passengers didn't stand to applaud, but to give thanks. An elderly veteran saluted formally. Ma'am, that was the finest flying I've ever seen. Ellie returned the salute, calm, without pride. Music becomes inspiring, bright. 6 months later, Ellie received the Civil Honor Medal. After the ceremony, a young girl approached her. Miss Ellie, can I become a pilot like you? More than okay, Ellie said with a smile. You can achieve anything. And that was Ellie's true legacy, not medals or titles, but the message that greatness isn't limited by age or appearance. Anyone brave enough can achieve anything. The girl in seat 7A had tamed the sky, and changed the world just a little. Music fades, narrator softly. If you ever believe you are too small, too young, or too weak, remember Ellie Ward. Excellence knows no limits. It only waits for the brave.